So do you start streaming? Are we streaming? I thought we were up. She waved at me. Okay, so let's see what it says here. What? Okay, it says live. So this is what you can do, Susan. Click on start streaming. Who is? Oh, nice. It'd be awesome if he felt up to going. So you did start streaming, right, Susan? I love technology. My goal is to have y'all out of here by 6 o'clock, maybe before, unless y'all have a lot of questions. So, do what? And you did start streaming, right? And am I on? You see me? Oh, there I am. Hey. Hey, everybody. Hey, I'm, well, there I was, and there I left again. It was nice while it lasted. I was up and I was running, and there it went, and then it was gone. What'd you do to make it run? You don't know. Dennis, where are you? Okay, I'm going to give this 2 minutes, and if it doesn't work, and we're going to ixnay on this, and I'll just have to do this again later for those that are out of this area or out of their mind. Okay, so I'm live then. You can hear me, but they can't see me. Is that what it is? Well, okay, so we know that we are live in audio. We're having a few technical difficulties with our camera or something. Is the camera running? Okay. Anyway, so we're gonna go with this. If you've tuned in, welcome to our informational meeting. My name is John Utley, lead pastor of Radiant Life Church, and I want to tell you a little bit about myself because Susan and I are leading a trip to Israel in 2019. And I want to tell you a little bit about who we are and what we've done. We've led over 20 teams to Central and South America. We've led teams in ministering with using medicine, doctors, dentists, eye doctors, ministering to the most impoverished people in those countries. And as a part of that, we planned and organized and orchestrated, recruited, procured equipment, supplies, and medicine to help people in those countries without charge, and some with no access at all to medical care. We've also led teams that have built buildings, churches, orphanages, raising funds for participants, and also for those projects. So this is a part of who we are. We've led teams for a long time. We've led over 400 people in various teams through the years. We started our missions leading in 1992, and we've been doing that ever since. In fact, in just a few weeks, we're going to Honduras with a group of people to do ministry at an orphanage. So we've done trips, a lot of trips through the process of time. So we're getting ready to to do another trip, and this one is going to be to Israel in 2019. In 2001, I traveled to Israel for the first time and went with the Bible school. And when I was at the Bible school, we were able to go to the sites that most people go to, but also with some professors and some scholars, some biblical scholars, so that we could see a little bit more about the whole process of what Israel held for us. And just a few years ago, we felt led to lead another team there, and we wanted to share that experience with others, so that you could see the same thing. The land that God promised to the people of Israel, the land that God promised to Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, and that Moses saw from a mountain and Joshua conquered. And we wanted to take a group of people with us because we wanted people to experience the land of the Bible. So, and last year we took a group of 7 people, including myself and my wife, people from northern Indiana, 7 from northern Indiana, but over 50 from around the country. And we traveled to the Promised Land, to Israel, and we got to see where Elijah walked. We got to see all these kind of places, the same valley that John the Revelator said that the very last battle of mankind would be, and that is the Valley of Armageddon, which is on your screen right below me if you're watching this, but right above me if you're in the room. And so it was a great time. We sailed across the Sea of Galilee. We viewed a synagogue that was very near an archaeological site that they believed that Peter's mother-in-law, or that Peter lived in, that his mother-in-law was healed in. We baptized people in the River Jordan. We were able to go into the River Jordan outside of Jericho and see the land that God gave to the people of Israel when they first walked into the Promised Land. It was really a great time of just seeing the sights that they would have seen, the terrain, the layout of the land. And we saw Jericho from there. We also went into Jericho and saw where the walls came down, and we saw the home place of blind beggars, and we saw the same place that Zacchaeus lived. We actually saw a sycamore tree, but it wasn't that sycamore tree that he climbed up into, which was really cool because we were able to see so many things while we were there. We went to the Dead Sea, which is the lowest place on the planet. We went to Elam, which is a picture that you see here where David hid from King Saul. Qumran and the Dead Sea Scrolls, where they were found. This is a picture of the Dead Sea, and from the top of our hotel there, and we were able to float in that. We went to Bethlehem, and we saw where Jesus was born, where David lived, where Rachel died, and where Ruth gleaned in the fields of Boaz. And then we got a chance to go to the Mount of Olives and look into Jerusalem. Most pictures that you see, including this picture here of my wife and I as we stood on the Mount of Olives looking down in Jerusalem, is a very interesting thing because it was from that vantage point that Jesus ascended to heaven. And then we went into Jerusalem and actually saw and stood on the same steps that Peter stood on when he preached the gospel, and the place where Jesus, as a 12-year-old, where they found him. We went to a place that looks like a skull. In fact, they have pictures from the early 1900s of this same picture that you see here on the screen. And back then it looked more and more like a skull than it does now. But over time, of course, things deteriorate. And but it still looks pretty menacing. And so it very well could be the very top of that is where Jesus was crucified. And then we also saw the empty tomb where Jesus is no longer in. Hallelujah. He's alive. And so we got to see a lot of sights. We got to see so many things. And we enjoyed it so much that we thought we want to take a group back to Israel. And so we're going to do another trip, but this time we're going to add a day, and we're going to add some places that we didn't go to before. Caesarea Philippi, this is where Peter declared Jesus was the Christ, the Son of the living God. We're going to go to Gath, where David killed Goliath. We're going to go to the Rabbi's Tunnel, which is a tunnel that goes along the western wall down into underground. That could be very well be the passageway that priests took with the Ark of the Covenant as they were going into the holy place or as they were going to do their ministry. And there are some that believe that maybe the Ark of the Covenant is somewhere in the corridor of some of the walled-off places in the Rabbi's Tunnel. In fact, there's a place online called TripAdvisor, and they call the Rabbi's Tunnel one of the most, they call it a must-see destination in Israel, and very few tours actually go through there. So we want to go there as well. We're also going to go to the place called the Doloms. And the Doloms is where they have uncovered graves of giants. So if you ever wondered if the story of David and Goliath was true, if there really were giants in the land, there were. And we'll find the graveyard of the giants there. And then we'll go looking over the Damascus Road in the Valley of Tears, where God gave the people of Israel, who were severely outnumbered, a great victory in 1973 in the Yom Kippur War. They'll tell us a little bit about that. So we'll see things that go back even before the time of Christ to the Old Testament, and then we'll see things that have happened to Israel since Israel was reestablished in 1948. So it's going to be an epic trip. And I'm excited because we've added some sites that I wanted to go to this time. We just ran out of time. And we didn't have some of them on our itinerary, so we could not go to those places. But I thought, you know what? I want to go and see more places. So that's one of the things that we're going to be able to do when we go in a little bit over a year. Now, we have places on our itinerary, and we've got, if you go to bestofisraeltour.com, or for those that are in the service here today talking about this, you can actually look at the itinerary, and there's a lot of things that are on here, a lot of places that we're going to be able to go, and we'll talk through that in just a moment. But I just want to share a couple of things with you, because I think that sometimes people ask the question, why do I need to go to Israel? What is the big deal about going? Can't I just read my Bible and that be enough? And I think that it is. I don't think that you have to go to Israel in order to have faith. I don't believe that you have to see that land in order to believe. But one thing that I think that it does for you is it will help expand your Bible knowledge. It will give you a view of Scripture like you've never seen before, because a lot of the stories that we've read in the Old Testament and the New Testament, you just don't get a semblance of what it was like. The terrain, the topography, the way that the land lays, what they must have seen, some of the sights that they would have seen. So like sailing across the Sea of Galilee in a boat is different than reading about it. And the first time that I went, it was like, this is different than I thought it would be. Or seeing Jerusalem from the Mount of Olives and realizing that when Jesus was in the Garden of Gethsemane, he could actually look into the holy place from where he was. Now, he couldn't see into the Holy of Holies, but he could see the outer room from the Garden of Gethsemane. So when he's praying, Father, let this cup pass from me, he could see that. He could also see not too far away where he was going to be crucified, that hill called Golgotha. So he could see that from the place where he was asking God to take the cup from him. And you just don't get that when you're reading the Bible, because you don't see that picture there. But you see it when you go. Like the steps of the temple, some of those original steps are still there, so you can walk. You can literally put your feet on the same steps that Jesus walked on, that Peter preached from, the same steps that Jesus went up to chase the money changers out of the temple. So it makes the Bible come alive. It makes it three-dimensional, and it's amazing what it does, not just around Galilee, but in Jerusalem, Jericho, everywhere. You just get a great sense of what it's like. And I think that it doesn't verify anything as far as I don't have to have that trip to help me. But when you start realizing that those places are real places, that you've actually walked there, you've gone down some of those dusty roads, you've seen some of those archaeological digs, then all of a sudden it makes it very real what you've been reading. And like one of the things that we saw when we were in Israel, the first time that I went, we were on Mount Carmel. Mount Carmel overlooks the Jezreel Valley. It's a huge valley. The Jezreel Valley is also known as the Megiddo Valley, which is where the Battle of Armageddon is going to take place. And so we were up there, and we're looking out over this great, huge expanse of a valley. And we're talking about the end times. We're just talking about what it was going to be like in the end times and that great battle that's going to happen there. And there's this one part in Scripture that talks about that the battle will be so furious, and there's going to be the carcasses of men, and everything is going to be everywhere. And the birds of the air are going to swoop down, and they're going to, essentially, this is kind of a gross thing to talk about, but they're going to swoop down and they're going to eat the carcasses of people that are defeated in the Armageddon Valley at the last battle. And so we go down Mount Carmel. We've just talked about this. We go down there, and there's a little place that we stopped at for lunch just right below that. And we got off the bus, and I looked up in the sky, and there are these huge birds. They are just everywhere, and they're flying. It's like, I thought they were vultures. And I thought, oh, we're at the Battle of Armageddon now. They're going to come down now. What? I'm scared. So I asked the guy, I said, what are those birds? Because they were huge. They were storks. And what he told us was, he said that's a natural fly path from Africa to Europe. So during migration time, these birds will naturally fly through that valley because it's the best throughway for them to get to Europe. And I thought, wow, God knows exactly what he's doing. And when John the Revelator saw that, he saw that very powerful end-time event. And it's very logical that it would happen there because there's a natural migratory path for birds. It's interesting because you go there and you realize, these things that you see, you'll be able to see something. And I think this is one of the most powerful things about going to Israel is what God promised to Abraham and the patriarchs and the prophets. God delivered on that promise. And so when you go into Israel and you realize that God promised that promise to Abraham hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years before it actually came to pass, then you have an understanding that God he's got the long term in mind. He's thinking long term. When he makes a promise, though, he keeps his promises. And I think that once you go there also, you'll realize that to get there may be a faith venture. And I've talked about this at the church. I think that sometimes when we go on missions trips, I tell people all you have to do is say yes, and God will take care of the rest. And now we think of that because it's a faith venture, and we want people to be able to experience a missions trip and to go do missions somewhere, and God provide for them. But I've seen God do the same thing for a trip to Israel. When you say yes to that trip, God provides everything else, and he makes it possible for you to be able to go. And all it takes is just saying yes. Now, there's going to be a little bit more that you'll do because you'll need to tell people that you're going, especially if you can't afford it, and just ask them if they could help you to make this trip a pilgrimage to the Holy Land a possibility for you. And it's amazing the people that will rise up to make that happen. Now, I know firsthand because my first trip was in 2001, and I was a Bible college student. I was doing a distance education program through Southwestern Assemblies of God University in Texas, and we were living in Arkansas. And I was working. I was an interim pastor at a church, and I was really having a hard time. We were just all the time just trying to keep our head above water financially, and then so this. About December of the particular year in 2000, the year 2000, I saw that the college was taking a trip to Israel. So I called about it to see if it could be included as a Bible geography class that I could take because I needed that class. And so I said, "Can we do that?" And then they said, "Yes, you can do that, but you've got to go on the trip." Well, the trip then was about $3,000. Well, we didn't have $300. We were just like at that point where we needed. It was going to take a miracle, and I called a professor there, and I said, I don't have a lot of money. Is there like grants? Is there like scholarships? He said, "John, all you have to do is just say yes to God, and he'll take care of the rest." Now, I'd been used to that because we've taken missions teams all around the especially Central and South America, and that's always been my thinking. So when he said that about Israel, it's like, okay, this is not a missions trip. This is almost like it's a tourist trip. But I'm going, it's a religious thing, but, I said, "Do you think he'll do that?" He said, "I know he will. Just say yes, and God will take care of the rest." So I did, and I started telling people that I wanted to go to Israel. And literally within 5 weeks, I had every penny raised. And we were going in March. It was during spring break at school. So I didn't even have a month or 6 weeks to get all my money together because it had to be in very quickly. So that was the concern that I have, So I just wanted to make sure that you understood that it's a faith venture, that when you say yes to God, anything that he says that he wants you to do, he'll take care of all the provisional stuff. He'll make it possible for you to be able to do what he asks you to do. And even if it's something like this, so to expand your appreciation for what he's done in his word. So there's a lot of questions that people have when they do a trip like this. One question that people have a lot of times is there a lot of walking when you go? Now, you don't walk from, like Jesus and the disciples did, from Jericho to Jerusalem, okay? So you got a bus that's very air-conditioned, it's nice. It's a top-notch bus that's going to take you from place to place. But in the different sites that we go to, there is some walking. And like when we go to Masada, Masada is a elevated. It's like a mountain, and there's a cable car that takes you to the top. But there's a lot of steps that you do in that area. Now you don't have to do all of the steps in all the places. You can just sit down and say, I'm going to wait for the group to come back around to me, or you can just say, okay, I need to rest. And but there is some walking. So if you have a hard time walking a great distance, you either need to get ready for that, or it may be a harder trip than you want to take. Also, you will get hot. People ask the question, is it hot there? And so think about right now, like we're in May, and it's a weird May because it started really cold, but we'll be going in June of next year. So in June, it will be like late July, early August in northern Indiana, the hot time, not when it cools off, but the hot time. So it's going to be probably lower 90s. The humidity in some places is low, so it doesn't feel as hot. In some places, it is high, so it's going to be hot. But there's water available all the time, and they push that, and we will too. Drink plenty of water to make sure that you do well in the climate. So a lot of walking. It's going to be hot. Food is going to be delicious. For the trip that we're taking, your dinners and your breakfasts are provided, and they're all buffets, so you can eat all you want, and you will eat well. The food is delicious. These are first-class hotels that we stay in, so everything is good. The only thing that's not provided meal-wise is lunches, and we go to different places, so there's going to be opportunities for you to get lunch there, and it's as much or as little as you want to do. Okay, so but you pay for that on your own. Like I said, the hotels are first class. We stayed at the Olive Tree Hotel in Jerusalem, and it was gorgeous. It was a beautiful place. The food was incredible, and that's all included in the cost, so you don't have to worry about that. The only thing that's not provided is your lunch, your souvenirs, and water during the day. But the water is very economical for you to do. Your airfare, your hotels, your bus, your guides, your entrance fees, and everything is all included. What was the question again? I think we drank the water in hotels, didn't we, Susan? Yes. So in the hotels, it was fine. Yeah, because Israel is really not primitive like we've gone on overseas trips. This is top notch, and the water's okay. It's all filtered. And if there ever is a problem that we go into, they'll say only drink bottled water, and they'll tell us that because they know they don't want anybody to have a problem with it. So. Yeah, so the question is like you have to be careful even when you take a shower. So in Israel, you don't have to worry about the water. The water is really good and it's fine. It's not a problem at all. So as a part of what we're doing, we also everything's included. And like on the brochure that you get, it details all the things that are included in the price. So essentially, it's everything that you would need. All the things are provided, but we do some extra stuff. We're going to be going to some extra places. We're staying one day longer, and that may not seem like much, but on a trip like that, it really does matter because you can see a lot of sights in one day. When you go to Israel, you think, okay, we're going to go all the way across Israel, and it would take, for those in northern Indiana, it takes longer to get from here to Fort Wayne than it does to get across the entire nation of Israel. It's a tiny nation. So our understanding of distance is going to blow you away. Now, there's going to be a couple of bus rides. They're going to be a little bit longer, just simply because you have to wind around mountains and everything. And there's a little bit of distance there, but it's not as bad as you think. But so that extra day is going to, since everything's so close together, it's compacted together, we can see a lot more sights in one day than you can like if you're touring the United States, because that's the way we think. It's a whole nation. We're going to tour the nation. Yes, we are, but it's not that big of a nation. It's smaller than Rhode Island, I think somebody said. It's actually smaller than Lake Michigan, if that gives you an idea. So, yeah, it's crazy. So, but as an added bonus, along with that extra day, beginning in the fall of this year, we're going to have Bible studies for people that are going with us. And essentially, the Bible studies are based on the day. So, like on the first day that we get in there is June the 20th that we actually start our tours. It's Jesus in Galilee. So we'll be talking about all the things that that happened around the Sea of Galilee in that Bible study. See, when you go to Capernaum, you'll know some of the things that happened at Capernaum. And there's some things that we'll build in from the Old Testament too. So you may give it, it may not have been called Capernaum in the Old Testament, but when you get there, you'll think, okay, this not only did Jesus do most of his ministry here, but this also happened here. And we'll do that in Bethlehem. And so when we're talking about Bethlehem, Bethlehem is an interesting place because in Bethlehem, of course, we know about the shepherds watching their fields at night, just checking things out. And all of a sudden the angelic host and everything, they told about the Messiah being born, which is really cool. But there's a lot more things that happen in Bethlehem. That's where David was anointed king. That's where Rachel had Benjamin and she died in childbirth. That's where Ruth gleaned in the fields of Boaz. I mean, that was an amazing small little area. And it's just on the backside of Jerusalem. It's not like it's 40 miles away. It's like a couple of miles away. It's not that far. It's amazing the distance. In fact, between Bethlehem, I think it's between Bethlehem and Jerusalem, is the Mount of Olives. It's Bethany where Lazarus was raised from the dead. So all these things are like in this small little area. It's amazing. But we'll do Bible studies that will talk about that. So when we go to those areas, you'll have a lot of information packed into your mind so you can enjoy the moment, but also just remember all the things that happened there to make that layer of history really grow in a way that you can appreciate in your Bible study. So I'm really excited about that part. We did that before with the group that went with us before, but because we did a few things while we were on this trip, it helped us to be able to expand it a little bit and to come out with a lot more information. So I'm excited about that, and we'll start that in the fall for those that are going with us. Now, a lot of people are concerned about about the guides that we have going with us, about the information that we get. The guy that we had with us this last time has been doing these kind of trips since the early 70s. To say he has a little bit of information about Israel is an understatement of every proportion you can think of. He was actually in the Yom Kippur War firsthand. The guy knows his stuff. So that's the depth of information that we get from those the people that lead our trips, and just they make it really a wonderful time for us so that we can see everything that we need to see. Now, all of this is for I think it's a very low price for all the things that you get of $39.96. And the nice thing about it is the first deposit is $300, but it's due when you register, or if you register online and you send in a check. And I would encourage you to do that and not to do a credit card, because if you do a credit card, they charge you an extra 4% because of their fees associated with it. But if you register online, you can send a check. $300 secures your spot, but the first payment's not due until March the 5th of next year. So it gives you a little bit of time to raise the money. For those that are in the northern Indiana area, we have some opportunities for people to actually do fundraisers. And we've got one that's coming up in June for those that are interested in that. And it's working for a local barbecue place for an event that they have that day. And then maybe this year we'll also be doing some Notre Dame games, and you can raise money that way as well. So the first payment's not due until March the 5th of next year, and the final payment is April the 4th of next year. So you've got almost a full year, 11 months to have all your payment in. So like I said, this may be a faith venture, and I just really encourage you to say yes to God, and we can give you some resources to help you to be able to talk to people and to ask people for help. And people, I'm telling you, people really, they if they've ever been, they'll connect with that very well. They'll say, yeah, you need to go, because it is a great experience. And then also those that have not been, you may have to explain why you want to go, but people really resonate with seeing the land of the Bible and walking where Jesus walked. It's an amazing thing. So it may be a faith venture, and I just say dare believe God for what he wants to do. Now, there's usually questions that people have about this, and the first question they have about Israel is Israel safe? Is it safe to go to Israel? So when I went in 2001, the Palestinians did an uprising, and the uprising was, they call it their intifada, and it was a holy war against Israel. And so, of course, I was concerned. I'd never really researched it, so I called the school, then I called the tour company, and we're going through the same tour company that we went with last year and that I went with in 2001. and they're called noseworthy travel. Or you may, if you look it up online, it's Educational Opportunities. It's the same company. And essentially I called them and I said, I'm concerned about safety. And they said, well, you can't guarantee that even in the United States that you walk into some place and somebody won't be crazy. You don't know that, right? But in Israel, the people of Israel are really security minded. They're a tiny little nation, but they are ferocious. They're surrounded by their enemy, but they are ferocious. And they've got God on their side too. So it's an amazing place to go. But he said that Noseworthy Travel has been doing travel to Israel since 1967. 1967, they at one point the number I heard was over 400,000 people have been on trips with Noseworthy Travel to Israel, and not one has ever had any kind of security issue with like Palestinians or holy war, that kind of stuff. People have heart attacks here in the United States. People have problems, but not security-wise. So since 1967, they've never had one thing. And what we've learned when we've gone is they stay on top of everything going on in country, and they make sure you're safe. And Israelis want to make sure you're safe. And honestly, Palestinians do too, because they want tourism money. There's billions of dollars that flow into Israel and into the Palestinian areas that supports their people. Believe me, they want people to come, and they don't want to turn off that faucet of tourism, because once they do, especially for the Palestinian area, it could be devastating. So like we go into Jericho, that's a Palestinian area. We go into Bethlehem, that's a Palestinian area. And when we go into Bethlehem, we change the guide that goes in with us because he's Israeli. Palestinian gets on board. But I tell you what, they take care of you. They want to make sure you're safe, that you feel safe, that everything's good. And we felt that way. So if there's a security, something about security that you're concerned about, I would just say that there's no guarantees anywhere you would go. But I always have felt safe every time I've gone. And my son, Jonathan's there now, so I believe he's going to be safe as well. It's going to be a good time for him. Yeah, exactly. I mean, God really, you'd be amazed. There's stories that you'll hear when we're there of how God has protected that land. It really is the heart of God. It's the heart of God. He wanted to provide that land for the people of Israel. And you'll see that. You'll hear that in the guides. They'll tell you that. But it's not just that. It's not just the spiel that they give. There is a sense when you go there that God has his hand on that tiny little, and he does. It's an amazing place. It's an amazing place. So people also ask, is the weather hot there? And like I said before, it is like it is here in late July or early August. It's a little bit further south on the, a little bit south in the hemisphere. I guess you'd say that in the hemisphere than we are here. So like in Arkansas in June, it's like it is in Israel in June, if you've ever been there, or Nashville-ish, because Nashville's a little bit cooler than maybe Arkansas is. Not Texas in June, because Texas in June is like 150 degrees, They don't cool down good until like November, so I don't know if my sister-in-law is watching or not, but, they had some 90-degree temps a few weeks ago, and we were there, and it was in the 90s, so when y'all were getting snow, okay? Just saying, because we were there. It was hot. Okay, I talked about walking. There's a lot of walking. We don't walk from place to place, but we do a lot of walking within the places. So you just want to wear something that's good, comfortable shoes, good walking shoes, and be prepared to do some walking while you're there too. A lot of people ask about food, because sometimes about the type of food that they have. It's a Mediterranean type food. So if you've ever had any kind of Mediterranean food, a lot of olives, lamb, they'll have chicken, they'll have beef, but they will not have bacon. Okay, no pork there. So if you got bacon on your mind for breakfast, it ain't going to happen. Okay, you're going to have to do without it for a while. And they do cater to Americans, so you'll see some American cuisine there as well. But the food is really awesome. It is good food. And when I went in 2001, I stayed at different hotels than I did this time. And the food in both places was plentiful, and it was really very good. So you don't have to worry about it. Now, another question people ask is, what about diabetics? I know we have some diabetics that are going with us. So Mediterranean food by nature is pretty good on for diabetics. But during the daytime, you'll just want to make sure that you carry stuff with you to snack on, even between the time that we have breakfast and lunch, because we're doing a lot of walking. There's a lot. It's hot, so you want to drink a lot of water and also bring stuff with you so that you can keep your protein level like it needs to, and that you do all the things that you would normally do on a high, like a high activity kind of day, testing your sugars, those kind of things. But yeah, the food is very good for that. You just want to stay on top of it, So, passport, you do need a passport to go there, but not a visa. So the difference between a visa and a visa you have to apply for. You have to wait for them to approve it. Now, because we're going through Noseworthy, we don't have to worry about that. They take care of that with Israel. Both Israel and the United States have a back-and-forth agreement that way, so we don't have to apply for a visa, but you have to have a passport to get in country. So I think that most everybody has a passport. If you don't, make sure that you get one. And you got a long time to do it, but if you wait till about 10 weeks out, if you get within 10 weeks, you may have to do the expedited just to get it in time, especially as we get closer to summer, and that can be really, really expensive to do that, so it's best to get it as quickly as you can. Also, vaccinations, you don't have to worry about that. Usually in Ecuador, we've had to have some, depending on where we were. In Honduras, we've had to have some where we were. But in Israel, there's nothing that's required when we go in country. And I always tell people, make sure your tetanus is up to date, because tetanus is good for here in the United States. But as far as that goes, there shouldn't be any other problems that we need to worry about. If there are, we'll let you know that. So just some wonderful things that we can look forward to as far as the trip goes. And this is an opportunity for you to get some ideas as to what what we're expecting, the things that we're doing. The flight over is about 11 hours. And more than likely we'll fly out of Chicago into either New York, or we'll fly to a foreign destination and then fly into Israel. I doubt we'll fly directly from Chicago into Tel Aviv. It is possible. It just depends on how the airfare runs and how many people we have going, those kind of things too. So that's the thing. So you've got your itinerary in front of you, and can you even see it? Can y'all see it? The paper? So there's a lot of things that are on there, and as you kind of look through it, some of you have already seen these things. Do you have any questions about the itinerary or the things that I've talked about so far? Maybe those online, you have questions as well. What would those questions be today? Okay, so the dates of the trip are June the 18th to the 28th of 2019. June the 18th to the 28th. How early do we leave? Like, how early in the day? Okay. Okay, so what we did last time is a Teen Challenge took us over to Chicago. And the goal is I think we're going to have a couple from Teen Challenge that's going with us as well. We're going to ask them if they can do that again. They'll take us over, or we'll have somebody that will take us over to Chicago. This last time, we flew out at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Okay, so we flew out of Chicago. So we had to be there 3 hours early. So I think if I remember right, we left here about 10 o'clock in the morning. That gave us plenty of time to get there, to check in. We had lunch there at the airport. And then we went to the airline. We waited until the flight left. That particular flight flew from Chicago into Austria. Yeah, so we went into Austria. We stayed at the airport, so all we could see was what you could see out the windows of the airport. But we were able to say we actually got to go there, which was cool. And then from there we flew into Israel, into Tel Aviv, and that was about 3 hours. So there's a couple hour layover there in Austria. And so we left out about 4 o'clock. Now, Jonathan just arrived this morning. In fact, while we were in church this morning, he sent me a text. I saw it pop up on my thing while I was preaching that said, "I arrived safely." And he left out of Susan. Okay, so he left out at 2 o'clock, and then he flew into New York City, and then they flew all night long. And so he sent me that text this morning about 10:15 or so, 10:30, and so they from 10 o'clock until 10:30 the next morning. That's when they arrived from New York into Tel Aviv. So that tells you how long the flight took. And the planes are like, our plane was three seats and four in the middle. So yeah, so three, wasn't it three, or was it two? 242. Do you remember, Susan? There was a lot of seats, and they were very comfortable too. It's a long flight, and we always tell people we'll help you to prepare for a long. If you've never taken a long flight before, I know that. Did you ever do it in the military? Long flights in the military? Okay, so you know. Well, you were in cargo planes, probably, right? Not in not in an airline. Yeah. So, but we'll give you some hints on what would help you to be able to do that over a long flight. I know that Rob and Pam have been to England, so they're used to that too. They've been there before. Okay, so Ecuador is it's a few hours down there, but so just almost triple that, total. So any other questions that you have? Do they take American money? Most places do take American money. So we'll tell you when we get ready to go that when you go in, you'll want to take some large bills and small bills. And the reason why you want to do that is because you'll get some places and they'll want to give you shekels in return, which is the Israeli money. And you don't want to have to do a change of that before you get back because you'll lose value on it. So you want to be as close to the amount that you're paying as possible. So you want to have different denomination of bills, so that you can be close, unless you just want to bring back a bunch of shekels, okay? and we did. We brought back some shekels just because we wanted to, and we use those as souvenirs. I actually I probably have money from every place we've ever been, at least to some degree, some denomination. Yeah, they call it shekels, so still use it. It's not worth that like it was then, because then a certain shekel was worth some amount of money, but it's different. So like I think a shekel itself, I want to say it's like maybe a dime or something like that, but don't quote me on that because I'm standing in front of you and I forgot. I don't remember the ratio. Yeah. So essentially, what you'll do is you'll go into most of the shops and they'll have American money on the thing. They'll have U.S. dollars on there, along with shekels, so you can look at it and you'll see the difference between the two. So yeah, okay, if you're looking for bargains, no, it's not going to happen. The exchange rate is not going to be favorable or unfavorable. It's just it's like a set price. And there's some things that you'll probably want to. We go to one shop in Bethlehem that's an olive shop where they do olive wood. And there's some gorgeous stuff that they do, but some of the more intricately, carved things are really, really expensive. I'm talking about a small little nativity set. If it's intricately carved, it can be $1,000. Now, when I went in 2001, I brought back several of them. I brought Susan back one, and so when we went back this last time, it was like, I got Susan that one there, and that looked underneath, and it was like $1,200. It was like, I felt like a rock star. Because I didn't pay $1,200 for it before, and just prices have gone up, and but it's beautiful stuff though. You've got to get something, and they've got Christmas tree ornaments that are gorgeous, and they're not that expensive. It's just the more intricately carved stuff can be really expensive. So, yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the question is Americans are they deal with their plastic like credit cards and debit cards. Those are fine to use. We didn't have a problem at all using our debit cards. You just need to let your bank know that you're doing that. And what I would suggest is using a credit card if you've got one instead of your debit card. It's just better that way. And that way, but most of them have these understandings. If you're going, especially there, they'll tell you, okay, this is what we will do, and they'll watch things, and But we used our debit card while we were there, and we banked with a local bank here, a credit union, and it worked okay. Cell phones are okay to use there too. Now we got an international plan, and about everywhere we went, we were able to do it. In fact, when we were in Israel, a lot of the live events that I did on my phone, I did it with my phone, and I used my time. And like Verizon has an international plan that if you use it, it costs like $10 a day. But I really felt like that I wanted to do it to stay in touch, but you don't have to do that. And then Yeah, it's really cool because people. It was amazing. Like one time it was 3 in the morning here, and there was like nobody asleep because everybody was watching it. It's like, don't you people ever sleep? Because I knew it was going to be like early in the morning here, but it was later in the day there. Because I think if I remember right, the time difference is about 8 hours difference between here and there. So like right now, they're past midnight. They're 1 o'clock, almost 2 o'clock in the morning, and so that kind of tells you a little bit about that. But yeah, you can use your cell phone there. You can use credit cards there, and I think that we used 110 outlets too, didn't we, Susan? We didn't have to we took plugs just in case, but we were able to use the places that we went. We were able to use our electrical things that we do here. So yes, ma'am. Packing suitcases, okay. Yeah, so the airline fees for airfare, did we pay $40 per unit, Susan? Yeah, $40 per suitcase. It's what you're living out of for 11 days, So you can have a carry-on. So what we did is we had a carry-on, and then I had a backpack that had my electronic stuff in it. So I had a carry-on, a backpack. Susan had a carry-on and like a satchel purse thing. They let you take both. One of them can fit underneath, one can fit overhead. Now every airline's different, so we won't know that until we get probably within probably about ticketing time, which will be Mayish, around the 1st of May, something like that, and then we'll know what the airline will require and how much they'll charge. And it's possible they won't charge us anything, but we won't know that until that time comes. So. It depends on the airline. It really does. And sometimes international, it's different with everybody. Like we went Austrian Air because that was probably the cheapest route for us to take, and they let us do the carry-on plus the backpack plus I think the first two was $40 each, and then if you went a third bag, it was more expensive. We took an extra bag inside of a bag for coming back, but then when we got there. So a lot of these places will ship back to the U.S., and it was cheaper for us to ship it back than it was to use that to pay for that additional thing to send it back. So we did that. We shipped a bunch of, and like there were several of us, like Andy and Mary and Eric and Felicia. We went in on one, and in Jericho, I think it was in Jericho, we shipped a lot of stuff back in a common pack, and that was nice because then we just shared the cost of that. And yeah, so, and it was cheaper than getting the extra suitcase. So we just I think we kept our suitcase inside the suitcase on the way back too, which provided a little bit more cushion for the stuff that we were bringing back that needed the extra cushion. So yeah, good stuff. Yes. Laundry. So yeah, the you can send it out and everything. In fact, most of them don't provide washcloths. You have to take care of that yourself. You want to keep it because they'll take it and never bring it back. But your laundry, they have laundry bags. Now, it is, I remember, like when we were in Ecuador, I used the laundry service a lot because it was really cheap. It was like really cheap. I could wash a pair of jeans for 40 cents or something. So I would let them wash my jeans for me. That was nice. And they did all the nice stuff. Well, in Israel, it's a lot more expensive than that. So I would weigh that. I would think, okay, if I'm going to do that, I won't do it a lot because it will be a little bit more expensive to do that there. And I don't remember the amount, but it is available. You had a question too, Margie? Okay, laundromats. Okay, yeah. Susan, you had a question too? You were waving back here a minute ago. No? Yeah, underpack instead of overpack. She's right. We always, I get into this one place where I think I'm ready, and then all of a sudden I think, but what about, and then I end up just taking a bunch of stuff with me I don't even need. Yeah. Some medicine might have to go in the fridge. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's fridges in the room, but also on the bus there's a refrigerated area too that where we keep the water. So if you need to take something with us, you can do that way too. But we will need to let them know. So as we get closer, we'll let the the travel service know that we have somebody that needs something refrigerated, and they'll make sure that everything's good. They want everybody to do well, of course, and they want you to feel good. Now, there is an aspect to the trip that we haven't talked about. You know, the tour, the sightseeing, the round trip airfare, that's all covered in that. There's also an additional thing that you can get that is a travel insurance package. Now, we did that for everybody that was on our trip, and the protection plan covers of course, death. It covers medical expenses. Most of your insurance companies here in the United States are not recognized overseas. So, like, your health insurance may not be recognized in Israel. You can check with your health insurer and see, but they cover that. If your trip is interrupted, they cover it for the trip cost. If you're delayed, $100 a day. If you missed a connection, $500 a day. Baggage and personal effects, if it's lost or destroyed, $1,000. So all that's covered in that, but it is an additional charge to do that. And I tell people to do it because you never know what can happen. And it's so think about 10% of the cost of the trip is the cost of the insurance. But it will cover if something happens and you can't go. So, yes. It does not include the insurance. So the price that I quoted earlier of the $39.96 from Chicago does not include the insurance. That is an additional charge, and it's not mandatory. It's something that you can do if you want to. But I suggest that people do that just because it covers it. We did it on ours, and when we take teams overseas, there are other insurances that you can get online. AIG, I think, does one of them. You can buy them cheaper than this, but a lot of times they don't cover the like a trip interruption kind of thing. So I would just say that's on you. If you want to do it through another company, you can. Just keep up with your documentation and take it with you if you go, so that if there's an issue where you have, let's say that you have a heart attack or something, well, then they can show that, and that way that's covered that way. Do you have a question, Margie? Gratuities are included. Now, we do something at the end of the trip for the bus driver and the guide where we do an additional one if people want to give to that. And we came prepared for that, for those two guys, but all the other gratuities and the hotels and everything is all taken care of. So that is kind of an extra blessing. We had a guy with us, like I said, that he was in the Yom Kippur War, and he was like, he was with Johnny Cash when they did their filming back in the early 70s there on the Sea of Galilee. So the wealth of information he gave us, it was like, okay, I'm gonna give extra to this guy. He's paid by the tour company, but that just is an extra blessing for him, and I did it because, man, he was awesome. He was awesome. His name was Shraga. He called his group the Shragalites. He was so much fun. He was so much, informational was. And if we can get him, that would be the bomb. I mean, it would be awesome. So, anybody else? Okay, so the next steps are, if you're interested in going, a couple things I want you to do is fill out the information. You can fill out on the back here. You can go online to thebestofisraeltour.com and fill it out there. And once you do that, either by sending it in or doing it online, please let me know that you've done it so that I can make sure that they plugged you into our group. Because there are tons of groups out there, and there's a couple of codes that you'll need to know, and they're at the top of that page. It's going to ask you for the departure date, the tour, and the ID number. Those three things will need to tag you into us. If for some reason they're left off and you tell me that you've done it, I can make sure that they connect it. But I just need to know that you've done that, especially for those that are in other parts of the U.S. You'll need to let me know that, too, that you've done that, so that we have that information for you and everything is connected correctly. Now, we may not all fly the same flight. For those that are coming out of Texas or Arkansas or wherever, you may not fly on the same flight that we are, but those that are coming out of northern Indiana, we will be on the same flights all the way into Israel. So we should all be together without a problem. Yeah, so if whoever we have take us over, we'll just pitch in on gas and make sure that we bless them. What we did last time is we pitched in on gas, and then we bought them meals so that they had food and they did good, and yeah, just bless them a little bit, and it worked out really well. So yeah. So and as time gets closer and we know our numbers, then If our numbers are large enough, like from northern India, and let's say that we have 40 people that go with us, and that's always possible. If we have 40 people, well, then we'll get a bus like Cardinal Bus or one of these bus lines around here to take us over, and we'll take care of the cost of that. You won't have to worry about that if we have 40 people, because that will be enough for. We'll ask Noseworthy to help us on the cost of that bus. So, and they will do that. So, yes. Okay, he asked the question, how big is the group when we get over there? And that's a good question. I appreciate you asking that, because this trip cost is based on 15 people going. 15 people. If we have more than 15 people, well, then we will, if we have less than 15 people, we will be with another group that will not be us. So it would be us along with another group in a bus, and it will be a bus of about 50 people. If it's 15 or more, well, then it will be us. We may be in a smaller vehicle, and the larger that we get, beyond the 15, the price changes in a good way. So let's say that we get to 30 people, well, then the price will go down per person, because it's the economy of scale. The hotels are the same, the airline costs are the same, but that bus is the key. The bigger the bus, the cheaper it is per person, and we're in that bus for 11 days. So, yeah, it does come down in price over that period of time. So the more people we have go with us, the cheaper it is on everybody. This is the most that it will cost, but it's possible that will come down. And if we have 15, then it's going to be our group. Now, my goal is for us to have just our group in whatever vehicle that we do. And the reason for that is because there's a couple of places that we go and a couple of things that we do that are more intimate times, like the water baptism service at Jordan. That's a very intimate time, and I want it to be our group that does that. And there's a lot of reasons for that, and I won't get into it, but I want to make sure that. And then when we do communion, not everybody believes the same way we do on communion, and I want to make sure that it's our group doing the communion. And there may be some other things that we may be able to do when we get there that are more like Radiant Life and more like the people that we have going, so that the tour is kind of geared a little bit more to us. And if we're in a bigger bus with a lot of other people that's not our group, that may not be the case. So I hope that answers your question. But the more people we have go, the better it is for our group, just simply because of everything. And then, too, we get cheaper prices. And I like cheaper prices. It doesn't cut down on anything. And even if we don't make our number of 15, we're still done, and we're still going, okay? So one time we did this, we didn't have our number, and because we were the only group that was going at that time, we could not go. But now we're set up to go regardless. So when we get into, it's interesting because when we fly into Tel Aviv, I think we got in there in the afternoon, about 2 or 3 in the afternoon, maybe a little bit later. We got on their bus. One of the representatives met us at the airport when we got into the common area. They had a big sign up that says Radiant Life Church knows where they travel. And, when we walked through, it's like you couldn't miss it. And they're right there. And so I walked up to them and told them who I was. And they said, wonderful, get all your group together. The bus is out here. We'll take you out to the bus. They took us out to the bus. They loaded all of our luggage. We had to verify it and get it off the line. Took it out. And they loaded it for us, and we got on the bus, and they took us to Tiberias, which is the Sea of Galilee, and we went to a hotel there, and it took us about an hour and a half to get there. And we went there and spent the night, and we went there. We got in there about 6 o'clock-ish, and it was dinner time, so he said, go up, freshen up. They're going to take they'll take your suitcases, all your luggage. They'll put it in your room. So it was pretty much hands off when we got there. So when we got up to our room, they already started putting them in rooms. And so we freshened up, went down for dinner, and had dinner. And then by that time we were pretty tired. So it's like, because we're 8 hours different, so we had to get over that little bit of jet lag. But the way that they've designed it is really cool because it helps you to get over the jet. You're already excited because you're in Israel, so you're like pumped anyway. So it's like, bring it on. But I need to get some rest. Bring it on. But I need to get some rest, kind of thing, So, any other questions? Any other questions online? I don't know how many are watching. Hey, thank y'all for watching this, and Thank y'all for coming today. We're going to stop this part and the Facebook Live and just talk here. Hey, thank you. God bless you. And if you have any questions, please get with me online. Send me a private message if you need to, or you can do that, and I'll give you a call if you'll send me the number, and we'll share with you what we can. Hey, we love you. Thank you for taking time out today to look at this. Bye.